Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're going to call this January 14th NVCOG meeting to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Mayor Dunn.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we do the roll call, because we probably still have a few more signing in, I do want to acknowledge our three new CEOs, and as well as our town council chairman, Jonathan Ramsey of Watertown. We have First Selectman Stephen Sorty of Bethlehem, who's here with us today. We have Mayor Jeff Caggiano of Bristol. How'd I do on that, Jeff?
You did well. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Mayor Joe Kilduff of Plymouth. So welcome, congratulations. Looking forward to working with each of you. And always remember, we're here if you need anything. And I know Steve because he was a police officer for a long time with me, but the rest of you, I'm looking forward to getting to know you. Having said that, Rick, you want to do the roll call?
I'm going to do my best at it today, Mayor. We'll start. What I'll ask is that for each attendee, if you are present, we're going to wait for you to acknowledge that you're here. From the city of Ansonia, do we have Mayor Cassetti?
He's there. Mayor Cassetti's here.
Mayor Cassetti is with us.
I'll help you, Rick.
Good morning, everyone.
From the town of Beacon Falls, First Selectman Smith.
Is he on the phone?
Is he on the phone? No. No. Okay. From the town of Bethlehem, First Selectman Sorty is here in the room. From the city of Bristol, Mayor Caggiano.
Yep. Present.
From the town of, I don't believe we have anyone from the town of Cheshire today.
You know, I'm sharing.
Okay. From the city of Derby, Mayor Zekin is with us in the room. From the town of Middlebury, First Selectman St. John is with us.
I'm here.
Thank you, sir. From the borough of Naugatuck, Mayor Hess.
You're on Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor. From the town of Oxford, First Selectman Temple is here in the room with us. From the town of Plymouth, Mayor Kilduff.
Present.
Thank you. From the town of Prospect, the senior member, Mayor Chatfield. Is he there? Okay.
Yeah, he's there.
He's online.
He's on
somewhere.
Mute.
Okay.
He's right there. He's on mute.
From the town of Seymour, do we have First Selectwoman Dragonis? Okay, not with us yet. From the city of Shelton, Mayor Loretti called a little earlier. He said he is on his way here. From the town of Southbury, First Selectman Manville?
I am here.
Online. From the town of Thomas, First Selectman Mom.
I'm here, Rick.
City of Waterbury, Mayor O'Leary
Here.
is with us. From the town of Watertown, the council chair, Mr. Ramsey. Here. Thank you. From the town of Wolcott, Mayor Dunn.
Here.
From the town of Woodbury, do we have First Selectwoman Perkinson?
Here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're also joined today, Mr. Chairman, by Commissioner Mark Boughton, Kathy Awad, who will have a presentation later in the agenda. John Field from Demis Region 1 is with us. I believe Sarah Rodesi from Condot is with us today. Hetty Ayers is here from Eversource. I know we have Lou Mangini from Congresswoman DeLauro's office. I think we have Ellen Graham from Senator Blumenthal's office. And I think I got Tommy Hyde from Naugatuck Valley Regional Development Corp.
Joe Violet.
Joe Violet from Greater Waterbury Chamber is with us. And I think we have everyone. Mayor, you have a quorum present for both the MPO and the COP.
Great. Well, thank you. And thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Commissioner Mark Boughton, our dear friend. He's got a presentation for us, and I'll turn it right over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Leary. It's great to see old friends and new friends, and I got to be honest, I miss you guys. So It's I should have stopped in at Naugatuck Valley COG more often. But I have a quick PowerPoint deck I'm going to walk you through. Many of you saw it yesterday at the CCM, if you were at that meeting. If you didn't, I think you'll find it valuable. And then I'm going to flesh that out with a little bit of DOT information as it relates to the IIJA. But first, before I do that, I kind of want to give you an overview of why am I here and what's my job? What am I supposed to be doing? So in addition to collecting $22 billion worth of taxes and fees, the governor's asked that I oversee the implementation of the Investment and Jobs Act that was passed by Congress in November. Each state is designating a point person, much like President Biden has designated Mitch Landrieu, former mayor of New Orleans, to manage the outflow of this money. And so the point is for me to engage in cross-agency collaboration to try to get our agencies talking to each other and working together, pulling in the same direction, if you will. My job is to drive gains within this program to make sure we're maximizing every nickel of revenue. I work with the agency heads to set short-term goals, medium-term goals, as well as long-range planning. I got to make sure that we are, like many of you know, I'm a NASCAR fan, like Ricky Bobby, right? If you ain't first, you're last. So we got to make sure that our applications, that our strategic plan is in front of the federal government first. We don't want to have to wait because down the line, things change. And if Congress flips, they may change the rules for how this money is to be spent. If there's a change in administration, they may decide to discontinue the problem. So the first batch of people that are in will get better and quicker consideration. The president has also told us on a conference call, he wants stuff done and done now. He doesn't want to wait years for some of this money to be deployed. And so I'm with him on that. I've always been known to move quickly on stuff. My job is also to facilitate equity in this program to bring innovation. And there's no better laboratory of innovation than the mayor's offices across the state. You guys get it done because I used to be one of you, so I know you just figure it out. And that's something that's going to be critically important here because we're going to have to figure out a lot of stuff. I'm going to remove roadblocks for you, first selectmen, as well as the legislature, as well as our agencies. And I'm going to engage our stakeholders. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm talking to all the COGs. I met with the executive director of the COGs. I'm meeting with chambers of commerce. I'm meeting with CBIA, individual legislators, individual mayors. And I want to extend that invitation to any of you. If you want me to take a ride out and look at some of your projects, happy to do it. And certainly enjoy spending time in your individual communities. So feel free to reach out to me. Most of you have my cell phone number, and I'll tell you how to get a hold of me at the end here if that doesn't work for you. So I just want you to understand that that's kind of what I'm doing. And this is a big job, right? Connecticut's slated to receive roughly $6 billion over the next 5 to 7 years. And we got to make sure that it has a strong and profound impact and transformational impact on our state. Now, each agency, whether it be DOT or DEEP or any of our agencies, they all have robust auditing. They have robust accounting practices. They've got attorneys. They understand how to get all this done. So my job isn't to sit there and measure every penny going in. They already do that very, very well already. Again, my job is to be essentially a project manager. And so I'm setting up a PMO office adjacent to the governor's office, much like I did at Danbury, which was very successful. We are staffing up, not a lot of staff. I think I've got roughly 5 people to spend all this money. But that'll be enough for us to have a presence in the state and to move things through the process. Now, in this slide, you'll see here, and I mentioned to you yesterday, maybe, again, we walked through pretty quickly, that there have been a number of programs put forward by various administrations in a response to COVID, right? So we had $8 billion in the Coronavirus Preparedness Act. We had $192 billion in Families First Coronavirus Response. We had $1.7 billion in coronavirus aid relief. That was the CARES Act, if you remember. We had the Paycheck Protection Program, the Healthcare Enhancement Act. We had Consolidated Appropriation Act. We had the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, as many of you are aware of. And we, of course, now have the Infrastructure Investment Act. All in, if you count in the Build Back Better, that's at $1.75 trillion. It's $8.13 trillion that have been deployed to address us pulling ourselves out of this coronavirus challenge. That's a lot of money. Now, we know Build Back Better is wouldn't say derail, but certainly is battling its way through Congress, and we're not sure what's going to happen. The other thing I just want to point out to you is the $1.2 trillion that you'll see on the right in November. While the bill was passed, the money has not been released, and it won't be released until there's a funding plan voted on by Congress, both houses of Congress. Right now, they're operating on a continuing resolution until February 18th. Hopefully, they'll get that done, and then they'll actually release the money. Okay, next slide. Okay, how is that money to be spent? Now, here's one thing that people don't understand, and it's important that U.S. mayors and first selectmen do understand. A significant portion of that money at a national level, $650 billion, is spent on pre-authorized transportation. Those are existing projects and programs that already the DOT, in our case, DOT is already working with. And so they will simply just get more money in those accounts. You know, imagine if you had your ECS grant and you normally get $30 million and tomorrow you get 50. That's basically how that'll work. So that money's already deployed and it's already spoken for. People will not be able to pull out of Connecticut's money and say, well, forget about that intersection. We want to do this. And there's a really good reason for that. DOT has a number of projects that are ready to go. By the way, we don't use shovel ready anymore. We say ready to go or some other euphemism. So if we pull off or pull the plug on a project that they've been planning on, you're simply going to delay the deployment of the money. And so DOT's strategy, and it's a good one, is to move up the construction of these programs. So if you had a highway that's going to be worked on in your region and it was slated for 2024 or 2023, they're going to try to move it over into 2022. So that's where that big gray shaded area. And then we have new funding for different programs and projects. We have transportation, which is $270 billion. We have utilities, which is $185 billion, and environmental programs for $71 billion, as well as other, which is things like individual programming in specific states that would relate to a problem that we may not have here in Connecticut. Okay. So here's, I work with Accenture a lot, and I asked the guys over there, we don't have a contract with them, but I asked them out of the goodness of their hearts to put together this deck for me, and I worked on it with them too. But you'll see there's a lot of information that we just don't know, right? Generally, the rule of thumb on any federal grant is 1.3% comes to Connecticut. That's what you can use for a rule of thumb. Okay, we jumped forward here. Okay. We're on slide 6 now, right? So we're going to back.
And unfortunately, I apologize. This is my fault. It's in PowerPoint and it's in a PDF. Trying to move it.
Yeah, it's in PDF. Right. Okay.
I'm trying to move
it. Anyway, here we go. Great. So you'll see roads, bridges, major projects. The estimate for us in millions is $110 million. Of that, that's actually be $110 billion. Of that, we would receive roughly 1.3% of that money. And then if you look down that slide, you'll see that there's a lot of to be determineds because many of the agencies that touch these programs have not issued guidance. So we don't know how they're going to spend it. We don't know if they're going to change the formula. We don't know if they're going to increase or decrease said formula for and how that would impact us. That guidance will be issued over the next year, more likely 8 months, and each individual federal agency issues its own individual guidance. So it's really confusing and very complicated. Having said all that, we do have some things that we do know about, and we know that we are going to have a significant plus up in our highway program, specifically our federal highway money. So to give an example, 2022, yearly, we spend about $780 million. We're getting an additional $240 million in the same program over and over again. Thanks. But you also see a lot of stuff on here that, you didn't know that the feds were even interested in, right? So we have, for example, public transportation. We think that there'll be significant investment in public transportation, grid resilience on our grid, water infrastructure, high-speed internet, which is a broadband capability for most of the state, and the legislature has already programmed about $70 million towards that. EV charging stations, which DOT is hosting a and I'll get it out to Rick, but they're hosting a webinar at the end of the month, which I think you'll find very interesting. And then those are just a taste of what some of the new programs are, and they're significant. The bridge replacement system we talked about earlier, but it's a big priority for the president. He specifically mentioned that he wants to bring aging bridges into a state of good repair. So there's a significant amount of investment over the next 5 years in that for Connecticut. The charging formula, we think we'll do pretty well on that. There's a carbon reduction formula in there that DEEP will work on. That's $79 million. It's not on here. And then there's a new project funding formula for making properties weather resilient against climate change. So it's pretty interesting what they're thinking about doing. And then the next piece is there are regional grants that are available for, say, Connecticut. And the other states around it. There's a Northeast Corridor grant. That's about $30 billion, and that's for intercity passenger rail, and it's a federal and state partnership. Highway and roads, again, they're looking for state to state, county to county, city to city. There's about $6 billion in that. There's another bridge program. Again, it's got to be impact 2 states or more. And there are other grant programs that I mentioned. For example, there's I love this one. There's a mega project grant for multimodal, multi-jurisdictional projects, national or regional significance. Basically, I think that means a multimodal area would be a place that does buses and trains. I don't know why they could say that, but they like that. And then there's discretionary. These are the competitive grants that we're all going to have to compete for, and this is really where things will get heated. We have things like rail, as I mentioned, culverts. There's a grant program in there to fix your culverts. It's about $100 billion across the nation. Again, they're going to look for regional participation, and they're going to look for local buy-in, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we at the state of Connecticut have to deliver on $400 million per year for projects. Use the federal formulas that are already in place and use matching state funds starting in this year, FY 2022. And there's potentially another $1 billion over the next 5 years for all of these competitive grants that are out there. This is a good project, and it's got real muscle behind it. But it hits us in an area where I don't think we're particularly strong in, and I'll talk about that at the end of the deck briefly. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. It's going to require intergovernment coordination, competitive applications, and plans for funds. So these 3 things you'll see here: broadband, surface transportation, electric vehicles. We're going to have to really have our stuff together and wired tight. It means, and actually I'm going to use Neil as an example, but Danbury and Waterbury always work together because we were on the 84 corridor, even though we weren't in the same cog, even though we weren't necessarily, he's more towards the middle of the state. We always were looking for ways that we could facilitate that 84 corridor for economic development, jobs, education, all kinds of things. And that's how everybody has to begin to think. Because if you go in with an application with your planning director or your city engineer, that's just one town, you're not going to be scored very high and you won't get the money. We're also going to work with you, and we'll get out guidance to you probably another 4 or 5 months. We would like you to, when you get ready to start putting together your grants after their guidance comes out, we want to work with you on those, and we want to, try to, because we're going to be able to see the state in a holistic, comprehensive manner. You're going to see it more in your region. So your region, Naugatuck Valley, may fit in very well with another project going on somewhere else, and we may want to bundle them together because it makes us more competitive to get the grant. So those are the kinds of things that I'll be looking for when we get to that particular piece. The other thing I just want to mention to you is a lot of the small towns don't have the capacity to write grants. They don't have some of them don't have a town planner. Maybe they outsource that. Some of them don't have a town engineer. They might outsource that. So I'm going to go to the governor sooner rather than later and make a presentation about what I think the COGS can do for that. And if we can use the COGS as a clearinghouse, knowing that they've got to staff up, they're going to need some staff to do this. And I think the state, we can program staff through this particular program. I think that's going to make a nice clearinghouse for all of us to be able to go in that region, find out what's happening, who's applying for what, who's looking for what, and provide the backstop and the support for the smaller towns and smaller cities that just don't have the staff. And if you've written grants, I know Kathy has, I have, they want a story. They want a narrative. You got to really wow them. You can't just say, yeah, I'm going to replace a bridge on Jones Street. It's going to be really good. That you're not going to get any money for that. So they want to understand, how's that impact the community? How's it impact the neighborhood? How's it impact economic development? Are there any equity components to this? Maybe that's an underserved area for deployment of infrastructure resources. Those are the things that I think we're going to need to work on, because I don't think that's necessarily in Connecticut's sweet spot. We love being 169 towns and cities. I do too, and I did. But in this case, if we're going to get every nickel, we really got to work together. Okay. Here's some other programs that I thought are kind of neat that I just threw up on here. Water and environment. $4.3 billion. This is a competitive grant nationally for orphan well site plugging, remediation, and restoration. Pretty cool. $11.7 billion for drinking water, a revolving fund. $4 billion for drinking water revolving fund for emerging contaminants. I'm going to guess that's PFAS. $15 billion for lead service lines, replacing those old lead pipes. Now, $15 billion nationally ain't going to get anything done. I mean, Danbury probably could spend $1 billion replacing its lead line pipes from 1896. We have great water. It's not a problem, but I think, we're going to have to look how we can stretch those dollars to get a lot done. And you have a clean water revolving fund for emerging contaminants. That's a new formula. Brownfields, and I know that Neil has worked very hard on those. He's done a really good job with brownfield, capturing dollars and being able to put some of those properties back on the tax rolls. Freight and public transportation. Nationally, there's $3 billion for railroad crossing elimination. That's new. It's competitive. I always think of, and it's only because I talk about what I know, I think about the city of Danbury. We have a low-hanging rail crossing, and it never fails. At least once a week, a truck comes flying down that road and slams into the rail crossing, right? And by the grace of God, nobody's been killed in the last few years, but it's always just a site of mayhem and of stress and ties up traffic for hours. That's a great program for something like this, and would definitely help us be able to be more competitive in the Danbury area. And then we have electric grid, preventing outages, enhancing the resilience of the grid. Those grants, $2.5 billion, will go to states and tribes. We also have money to upgrade the grid. A little bit of an issue here with this because we don't own our grid. Eversource owns the grid. So I'm going to ask Eversource for them to put up a match as well. I mean, it seemed to me that using taxpayer dollars to let somebody sell their product over our grid, they should pay for some of that. And they can't, I don't want them to pass that along to the ratepayers. So that's a conversation that we're going to have as we get deeper into this. There's also these programs require comprehensive approaches to them. State and local cybersecurity grant, there's $1 billion there. Broadband equity access and deployment program, there's $42 billion. Digital equity capacity grant program, there's $1.5 billion. Again, these are national grants, and you're going to have a strategic plan. And the state, we're working on a strategic plan right now for Connecticut. So it'll be our job to show how your project fits into that overall comprehensive approach. So I'm going to be bugging you a lot. And then there's just some other considerations I just want you to be aware of. And if you were at CCM yesterday, you saw this, but I want to talk to as many groups and people as possible. First of all, we don't see any money being deployed, obviously, till after February, given the fact that we're operating on a continuing resolution. So that window from, say, March to November is when we think the money will actually go out. The other thing is, I have here watch Senate Bill 3011. Senate Bill 3011 went through the House. It's now sitting in the Senate, I believe, and it allows you to use your leftover ARPA money for your non-federal match. Most of these grants are going to require either an 80-20 federal state match or a 90-10. But if it's a local municipality, you're going to be required to put up some do-re-mi here to leverage the much bigger dollars. So you could use, it doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe you've got a bridge and the total cost of bridge is $1.5 million, and you happen to have $200,000 of ARPA hanging around money, then you could use that as a local match. Since I wrote this, there's been guidance issued by the Treasury that says you can use leftover ARPA funding up to $10 million for your local match. $10 million per project. So all matches are per project, not in the aggregate. And then, of course, I mentioned Build Back Better. They're working on that now. There is a lot of money as it relates to climate change and other related infrastructure to that you can leverage and putting together another program. And how we braid money, how we put money together is going to be really important. Can we get deep in DOT talking together so that they braid their grant and build even more? Can we use some of the Build Back Act, if it passes, to invest in clean energy technology along with DEEP's program, again, to stretch that dollar and to get more done for it? Those are the kinds of things that we'll be looking at. And you very well may get a reduced version of Build Back Better that might just focus strictly on infrastructure. And some of the other pieces of it may be removed or basically postponed to a later time. So it's not really going to be an easy task. I think part of it is our culture here in Connecticut. And, you know, I'm a lifelong Connecticut person. I love the state, born and raised, and you know, I'll probably die here. But I worry that, you know, we have this such independent streak in all of us that we're going to have a hard time. I don't think the mayors will have a hard time working on a regional basis. I think there'll be other issues that are going to pop up, but I think the mayors can probably handle that. I think it's going to be more, you know, how do we get the legislative body, the General Assembly, to see it that way? I think our agencies are committed to working together, which is good, but that's a lot of work. I mean, the scale and scope is huge, never been done before. I mentioned capacity is a major issue. Right now, our DOT to do this program needs north of 200 engineers, not counting the retirement cliff that we're facing. So if you add in the retirement cliff, it's more like 500 engineers. Well, the problem with that is, first of all, it takes us 6 or 7 months to onboard somebody. And secondly, Connecticut only produces 200 engineers a year. So we're really going to have to be aggressive at our recruiting. And Commissioner Giletti, who's, by the way, outstanding, great guy, Commissioner Dykes, same thing. You know, we're working and talking about, well, how do we speed up that hiring process? How can we take 8 months and make it 6 weeks? Why does it take us so long to bring somebody on board? Because we just can't wait. We can't wait and tell people we can't do your project because we don't have engineers. But it's going to be a challenge. Getting that capacity to do these jobs is going to be a challenge, and it's going to be a challenge for local municipalities. Hence why I want to beef up the COGS with some staff. We're going to work on our partners. That includes our business community, and we should be making decisions that are based on economics as well. Does it make economic sense? Does it help and improve our economy to do this project or program? And that's something that DOT does look very closely at, and we need to look closely at it as well. And then, of course, our program execution, compliance. I'm not really worried as much about compliance, although the paperwork that goes along with these federal programs is voluminous, and you need to have a team just working on the paperwork, which each agency does. So I feel pretty good about that. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. I just wanted to stop by. I'm briefing all the COGS. I know some people saw this yesterday. I gave you a little bit more information out of DOT and what they're thinking. If I gave you a list of the programs and projects that DOT is doing, you may not recognize them. I can tell you the towns are in, but because they're using the nomenclature from the bridge itself, you may call it, oh yeah, that's the Neil O'Leary Bridge, and everybody else is like, no, that's Bridge 22-3 Delta Bravo Tango. Like, all right, I never do that. So it really doesn't tell you a lot. I think you'll get a lot of discussion with the state DOT once they get ready to start executing this, and that of course can't happen until we get the money. We don't have the money right now, and so all we can do right now is plan. So with that, I'll throw it open to some questions. If you notice, I've got a little bit of a rough voice. So I'm the only person in Connecticut that did not get COVID, but got the flu. So there you go. After wearing a mask and, protect staying 6 feet away from people.
Hey, Commissioner, thank you. I think you are the only person in Connecticut that didn't get COVID, honestly. Folks, you can use either the chat room or raise your hands, and I'll try to call on you in order. We'll start with our senior official, Mr. Mayor Chatfield.
Is there possible, Mr. Commissioner, that we get a copy of this video that you just put up? You're shaking your head, yes, Rick?
Yeah, I'll distribute it to you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I thought the same thing. Edward St. John, next senior official.
Thank you for the introduction, Mayor. Mayor Boughton, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is any of this $1.2 trillion going to come directly to the municipalities for infrastructure? Because we can facilitate these projects a lot faster than DOT going through their bureaucracy of getting anything done. And the dollars seem to go further when we administer our own projects. So I just don't, or, you know, I don't mean to shortcut COG, they're fine too, but when you get DOT involved in something, so there, I don't know whether that's even possible. So we can do some force accounting with these funds and make these dollars go a little bit further.
Sure, Ed, that's a great point. And you know, the plus ups money, the money that's going into the existing programs, we'll use the MPO process. So we already have a process in place for that. They'll use that, but you'll have an opportunity to apply for grants. You won't have to go through DOT to apply for those grants. However, I'd ask that you work with our office, and I'll have more information out to you so that we can bundle your project with somebody else's. So I could show a regional aspect to this, because that will get you scored higher in front of the federal government, and then you'll get the check. It won't be run through DOT. However, you're going to have to, you know, figure on putting in some kind of local match. Again, you won't, if you don't have one, you won't get scored high and you won't get the grant. So my job is to remove those roadblocks and help you do that.
We're grateful for that, Commissioner, and that's a great point, Ed. And don't forget, everyone, especially the new members, you know, COG, our NVCOG is here to help facilitate and work with each of our members to, you know, put together the data necessary for a good, strong grant application. So don't forget that's part of what we do here. First Selectman Jeff Manville.
Thank you. So, you know, I'm excited about this, about getting the bridges and infrastructure under control. But one of the things I have found, or looking out at what goes on in the state, is we build something and we walk away and say, isn't that nice? It's built. Southbury has an aggressive maintenance program, and actually we have a number of bridges that we're looking to reconstruct and get. But we're also going to come up with a maintenance program to that's going to be in place to extend the life of these bridges beyond. You know, because that's what I see is happening, and along with roads. You know, Southbury has been aggressive with chip sealing and a number of other maintenance to reduce the capital expense of having to redo these things. I really think with a lot of these programs, we have to have some kind of a long-term maintenance plan rather than, okay, we have the money, do the bridge, it's going to last, you know, 50 years, but in 40 or 50 years, we don't know if there's going to be money back. So that's only my suggestion, is along with these projects that we come up with some sort of a long-term maintenance program to maintain these structures.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I hear you. And that was a bane of my challenges in Danbury, where we would build nice things and then not maintain it. So certainly we'll look at that. There isn't really operational dollars here, but I think that's, as we move forward, will be a priority. I will tell you, to be fair to DOT, though, you know, on their side of the aisle for their stuff, you know, they're struggling right now for staff. We've been, even at DRS, you know, every day I turn on the computer and there's 2 more retirements, you know, so, and it's just hard backfilling those positions. You know, you guys see it at the local level too. But having said all that, your point's well taken.
Thank you, Jeff. Mayor Pete Hess.
Yeah, first of all, Commissioner, excuse me, Naugatuck is definitely going to take you up and invite you to come and see some of our projects. And we have a lot of exciting things with a regional flair to them that fit right into what you say. But when I was looking at your chart, there was a $14 billion number under freight, and it mentioned infra that we've dealt with several times. So I guess my question is, are we going to have to go through that? I'll watch what I say here. That process with US DOT that is somewhat political, or are we going to have a more direct route through you that would be separate from the US DOT procedure?
Yeah, so go through me, and we will work with the commissioner of DOT, Joe Giletti, who knows, he is the rail guy in the US.
I'm talking,
I don't know anybody that,
US DOT is the one who we.
No, I know, but Joe has, Joe has the contacts, Mayor, in the federal government to move the needle for us. And you know, these things are based on relationships. You know that.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of Commissioner Giletti. He's a good guy. You know, he gets things done. And we bring him a project, he'll socialize it the right way to move it along. Otherwise, you're right. It'll be a decade before anything gets done. We'll all be on the beach with a margarita.
All right. Well, we look forward to meeting with you.
Absolutely. Be an honor.
Thank you, Mayor Hess. Do we have any other hands up or anyone else that would like to address the commissioner? Mark Nielsen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation, Commissioner. I'm the assistant director at the COG, as well as I oversee our transportation planning program. And, you know, we've been following this infrastructure bill, you know, for the last couple of years when it was, you know, first being the reauthorization of FAST Act a couple of years ago. So we've been sort of keeping an eye on things. And I guess the only question I have, or the comment I'd like to emphasize, is, you know, we understand the DOT's role in this program, and we just want to emphasize that the MPOs are available, willing, and able to assist the DOT in this program as much as possible. A number of the discretionary new programs, MPOs are direct recipients. And, you know, I think our feeling is that we'd be, you know, good candidates to, you know, directly apply for some of these grants. You know, so we hope to work with DOT and be partners in this whole process. So, you know, we're very excited, and, you know, we're hoping that Congress does do the right thing in February and authorizes the full funding of the, you know, the Transportation Act, at least, you know, when the continuing resolution expires. But yeah, and just to emphasize, the MPOs should be full partners in this whole program. And if you can just bring that back to the, you know, DOT, that they should take advantage of us.
Absolutely, and it's one of the discussions I've had with the governor about the fact that you've got some untapped resources at our COGS. We've got some really good people across the state that work there, and they can definitely be assistants, and can be a force multiplier for us in trying to access these dollars.
Thank you.
Great. Anyone else? John DeCarlo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioner. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm John DeCarlo. I'm Municipal Shared Services Director for NVCOG. We want to call your attention to a project we've been working on for a few years that would consolidate wastewater treatment operations for 3 of our municipalities. It would produce a major savings for these 3 over long term. And wondering if we should be going through your office. We want to make sure it's on your radar, but through your office or through DEP, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, we would be very interested in that. Continue with your standard application through DEP, but you can CC me on a lot of the stuff. I put my email address up on there, and certainly would be willing to come out and look at it. That kind of project would be will be looked at very positively by the federal government because it involves more than one community. So you definitely want to bring that in as one of your top applications. You know, one of the neat things, Danbury has a regional plan as well, but we actually figured out a way to turn the effluent into diesel. So we're going to cut the ribbon in April. Of course, I'm not there anymore, but they're cutting the ribbon in April, and we're going to power our entire fleet with diesel made out of the effluent from the sewer plant, as well as sell it on the open market to area towns. So that kind of project goes through the charts when they start scoring these things down in the federal government. So You absolutely keep me in the loop on that. And within the next month or two, I'd love to come out and just sit down with you and, just give me half an hour briefing so it's on my radar.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Other questions for our commissioner? It looks good, Commissioner. Looks like everyone has the information. We're very, very grateful for your time this morning. This is amazing news and opportunities, and I'm really hopeful that we do get something out of Build Back Better as well. But even without that at the moment, I see so many opportunities, and I really believe strongly that the regional approach is, at your suggestion, is the right way to go. But anyways, we're grateful and thank you. Don't be a stranger to these parts. Next time you're coming through Waterbury, I'd love to have lunch with you, and or I can even go out your way. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Development Authority that I sent you some information on. So have a great morning, get well, and we're, again, as a group, very grateful. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mayor. I left my email address up there. Anybody needs it, just in the chat, go ahead and take it. And most of you have my private cell phone anyways. Tommy Dunn does anyhow. So I am still available for Cal in the summer. All right, talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to call for public comment in just a moment, but, for our new members of COG especially, Mayor Hess and I created a regional development corporation called Naugatuck Valley Regional Development Corporation. It's mirrored after the Capital Regional Development Authority in Hartford. I would encourage all of our members to get a hold of Tommy Hyde, who is our CEO of that corporation, and ask, what the corporation can do for you and your individual towns. We are recognizing, Pete and I 2 years ago recognized the need for a regional approach to all this stuff. This was long before ARPA, long before Build Back Better, long before the rest of it. But it kind of fits nicely with all that. So we have some really good people in place, and we would love to, work with our COG members along those lines. So maybe when we all get to finally see each other in purpose, we can have more conversations about that. But in the meantime, feel free to get a hold of Tommy Hyde and maybe come to his office, or he can come to you and talk a little bit more about what we may be able to facilitate for your town. Okay, with that, public comment. Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to address the NVCOG board?
April Chaplin had asked to be recognized today. Public.
Okay, we'll call on April Chaplin, please.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you, Mayor. This is my first time addressing the Council as a Greater Waterbury Transit District Board member. Thank you, Mayor Hess, for the town of Naugatuck. I'm very excited to be a part of this. But the reason I wanted to address you today is for two asks. First, I did attend a Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging Senior Council meeting yesterday. And during that meeting, a number of our town's senior center directors expressed a lot of frustration and a lot of sadness in seeing a lot of our senior population deteriorate, both cognitively and physically. And of course, when we talk about our senior center population, our seniors, we very often think of them as very fragile, needing extra care, extra protection, but they're adults. And we have a very strong, healthy, active senior community that the State Area Agency on Aging has not given guidance. It's been left to the individual towns, and in many towns, they're doing a fantastic job. But there are some towns whose senior populations are literally deteriorating. So what I'm asking is that either one, you can all reach out to the State Area Agency on Aging for some type of written guidance so the senior center directors aren't floundering and feeling so frustrated and worried all the time. Or maybe you can even talk amongst yourselves about how your senior centers are doing. And senior centers are a big part of transportation. And as the regional mobility manager for your area and now Greater Waterbury Transit District board member, it would be great to see some type of reach out by all of you. You all carry a lot of weight with your towns, and you've all been doing a wonderful job. Sometimes the senior centers and the transportation providers at those senior centers don't reach out because they know you are so overwhelmed with so many decisions right now. But it would be fantastic if you could reach out to them just to make sure they have what they need, that they're able to transport their seniors back and forth, not just to medical appointments and to grocery stores, but to senior center activities. A lot of senior centers have been doing drive-bys and drive-through vaccination clinics, food pickup. But a lot of times we don't remember that that's great for the people that are still driving, but there's a good amount of seniors who do not have access to a vehicle and therefore can't get to those drive-through events. So those are my two asks. Thank you.
Nothing trouble. Thank you, April. I apologize for that. We're having some bandwidth difficulties here today. So Mayor O'Leary had to step out of the room to take an important call. He'll be right back with us. We're going to move on. If there are no other members of the public who care to speak today, anyone else who needs to be recognized? Okay, with that, we're going to move on to Mayor Dunn, who is the chair of the nominating committee, for the report of the nominating committee and election of officers. I will place that up on the screen. Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. Once it's up there, you'll see Mayor Hess from Naugatuck and First Selectman Ed St. John from Middlebury. We met, we discussed, we had one more person asking to be on the executive committee, which I think we were able to achieve. And we also added on the new mayor from Bristol from that area of town to come on to the executive committee. The officers, we chose to keep the same. We believe we're in a good position, strong position. We did have COVID over the last couple of years here. And we think we got to get a lot of things done and all this money coming in, and important to keep the strength up there. So we did promote Ed Mono to treasurer. So that was Mayor Pete Hess said he would, no problem. We bumped Pete down, but he was okay with that. But everyone stays the same. The executive committee, you'll see, it'll be Mayor Dave Cassetti, good to see the mayor here. First Selectman Ed St. John, myself, Mayor Richard Zekin, and Mayor Jeffrey Caggiano from the city of Bristol. And then you see Mayor O'Leary, chairman, Mayor Mark Loretti, vice chairman, First Selectman Ed Moan, treasurer, Mayor Pete Hess, secretary. That's coming to the board for a vote.
I'll make the motion, Chatfield.
I second.
Motion on the floor from Mayor Chatfield, seconded from First Selectman George Temple. Any discussion?
The only thing I would say is anybody that's interested in getting involved, I know we got another year, but please get your name in or follow the meetings. It's very important. A lot of good stuff, and we get a lot of good stuff done.
Okay, great. Okay, all those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And, I have to tell you, these are pretty exciting times right now. You think about what Commissioner Boughton just spoke about and all the opportunities. And, I know that there's going to be a wave of bureaucracy to wade through on this stuff, but hopefully we'll be able to make some headway. We have some very great people at the DOT, and we're grateful for their support. But I can only imagine what it'll be like at the federal level. We did a Tiger grant in Waterbury. We got a Tiger grant in Waterbury about 7 years ago, and it was the most complicated thing our staff has ever worked on. We were successful though. And we did the project, which is a $20 million project on Freight Street. And it has turned out to be an amazing project, but I worry about the staff at both the CONDOT and USDOT being able to handle this stuff. That's a legitimate worry. CONDOT right now is so short-staffed, and what a brain drain. And a lot of state employees are leaving, as we all know, because their benefit package changes dramatically as of, I think, June 1st. So I'm a little worried about all that stuff. So anybody knows anyone who needs a job, I'd send them over to CONDOT. Anyways, it's a good time. It's a good time to be in a position to leverage some of these things. And, between the NVCOG, the Naugatuck Valley Development Corporation, I can't think of any member of our COG, our 19-town COG, that shouldn't have a project to take advantage of this stuff. So we're here to help in any way. So moving on, we'll go over to the item agenda 3, CNV MPO meeting, and the adoption of the CNV MPO resolution 2022-06, tip amendments for projects that you can see on your agenda. Rich?
Yes, so we have 2 new projects being added to the TIP, and then one being moved from the previous TIP as a future year investment into the current TIP. So the first of those projects is the rehab of the South Street Bridge in Middlebury over Interstate 84. It's just about a $5.8 million project paid for almost entirely, or paid for heavily out of federal money with a state contribution of $1.15 million. The second project is the preservation of 4 bridges in Woodbury. That project is going to be just about $1.5 million of federal money and a local match of just under $300,000. This is a project requested by the city and being paid for jointly through the federal local bridge program as well as the STP urban program. And then the last project is just an additional signal replacement project in our region that includes 1 location. It is the intersection in Thomaston of Route 222 and the Route 8 southbound ramps. And so that project is being covered entirely with federal funds, just a little bit less than $700,000 total, over 14 locations, including the one in Thomaston.
I'll move resolution 2022-06. I do have one question that I would like answered once there's a second. I want to be assured that Woodbury is prepared to make that $295,000 match, but I move the motion.
You can be assured, Mr. Moan.
Just wanted to make sure, Barbara. Didn't want to leave you in the lurch.
Nope. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let me know when you guys are done.
We are,
we have a motion on the floor and we have a second from Mayor Dunn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Barb. Item agenda 4, NVCOG administrative items. Approval of the minutes from the December 10th, 2021 NVCOG CNV
So moved, Chatfield.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Approval of the agency financial reports and summaries for the period ending 11/30/21. Michael?
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. All right. So this is the finance report for the period ending November 30th. It went out in the agenda packet last week. As you all know, we adopted a deficit budget of about $103,000 back in June due to a state funding cut. But due to last month, I re-examined the budget and projected about a $10,000 surplus. However, with the audit report being finalized, we should be expecting about a $40,000 surplus due to the audited indirect rate reimbursement being recognized in the current fiscal year, pending CONDOT approval. Nevertheless, currently the net position is about $180,000 surplus, but it will converge towards my projections as the year progresses. Are there any questions?
Will financial report be accepted as presented? Ed Moan.
Second, Chatfield.
Any discussion?
Chatfield.
Discussion, Bob? You want to say something?
Nope.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report's adopted.
Thank you.
You want to go on to the audit update?
So the next item I have is the audit update. I sent out a copy of the audit report this past Monday. There have been no substantive changes since the draft report was reviewed with the audit committee last month. I projected a deficit last year due to COVID at about $134,000, but the net position actually came in at a deficit of $101,000. However, we actually gained an additional $100,000 to our general fund balance, bringing it to $843,000 due to a change in how we carry accrued PTO. So essentially there was a financial statement adjustment to last year's report, which ended up bringing it up. Nevertheless, there was no material weakness in internal controls, so the audit opinion was what we were looking for. We will go into a more in-depth review next week, or I'm sorry, at the end of this month in the executive committee meeting. But the only other two things, the major changes to the report itself has to do with, one, how the compensated absences are being tracked. So rather than accruing them in our books, we just do a financial statement adjustment on this report. Moreover, there is a pension plan report. Since NVCOG is a fiduciaries, the auditors insisted that this is something that we need to show, even though we don't have any liability for it, just to have the financial statements for the fiduciary funds be represented in the statement. Are there any questions I could answer for anybody?
Yep. Chairman, with your permission.
Thank you for calling Healthcare Primary Care.
Okay, we don't need to get into too much detail. The audit committee will convene as the executive committee in February, as Michael said. So we can take any detailed questions or conversation. You all have received a copy of it by email in the past week. So you can take a look at it and forward any questions if you need to have them answered in detail. But it's a positive report, and that's the important thing, and it's filed. All right.
Okay.
No actions required on the audit report.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Sounds good. We are now on 4D, the director's report. Rick?
All right. I will, again, try and make this quick. COVID policy, we've been hit like everyone else has. We've had a significant proportion of our staff between the holidays either infected with COVID or their immediate family members. So we're back on a remote work option, which is easy for us given the type of work we do. We really don't lose much time that way, if any, frankly. So we're bringing staff back once they've had an appropriate test, PCR test, and they've quarantined for at least 5 days, 5 to 10 days. But we actually haven't lost any time. I don't think anyone has actually booked a sick day, and everyone has continued to work remotely. So we've been in pretty good shape there. The COVID carryover of vacation days, as you recall, we've allowed staff to carry over beyond the maximum during COVID because they haven't been able to take vacation. So it's down to only 2 or 3 people who are projected to be beyond the max, who were beyond the max at the end of December 31st. So we're going to extend the policy I think we discussed this with the executive board previously. We're going to extend the policy to June 30th of this year, and then it'll cap, and anybody who's over the cap will lose that time on June 30th. We think that's going to be sufficient to take care of it, but it won't cost us anything more than we're already budgeted for.
Rick, I have a question on that.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, why can't people take vacation?
Well, for the last year, they hadn't been able to travel. Some people still can't travel. Wait
a minute. There's people going on vacation all the time, and your vacation, I don't understand why they can't travel. I mean, you can go to vacation in Florida, you can go to vacation in California, you can go to vacation, I deal with this on the municipal level also. And
Mr. First Selectman, we had a long discussion with the board about this policy and whether we should undertake it or not. It presents no cost to the agency. It's a courtesy to extend it through an extra 30 days. Anybody who has not used their accumulated time will lose it on June 30th of 2022. There's no cost.
How much time are we talking about? This is a liability on the books. It is a liability.
So the audit report that was the adjustment on the audit report. The new auditors do not carry it as a liability on the books any longer. That was the $101,000 entry.
So it's $101,000 worth of vacation that wasn't taken, right?
No. There's paid time off, vacation and sick time that was worth on June 30th of last year, $101,000. There are limits to what people can carry. There are maximums. 175 hours per employee is the maximum vacation time that they can carry over. There are some grandfathered employees who are at 210 hours, I believe. But that's the limit. When they go over that limit, they lose that time. So on June 30th, 2022, anybody who is over their limit will lose the time. It's not going to be carried into next year. We've just extended it during the fiscal year, from the calendar year to the fiscal year, because these usually annualize on a calendar year basis, but we account on a fiscal year basis.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's
wrong.
Question.
I think it's wrong. Thank you for your opinion, First Selectman Manville. I think you're wrong, though, to be honest with you, but that's okay.
Well, that's why Waterbury's in worse shape than Southbury.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that, sir. Any other questions? Go ahead, Rick.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Envision update, our Envision conference is scheduled for March 30th at the Palace Theater. That's the large conference. The governor will be the keynote speaker. We have 3 panels: transportation, community engagement, and housing. It should be a really good conference. But on January 21st, we will make a decision as to whether we will go forward with this or not. My gut is to go forward with it, but we'll have to make that call. We're not going to do it as a remote conference, though. That's the one thing we won't do. We won't spend the money to go to the Palace, do that event, drag everyone in, and have an empty building. So we'll make a decision over the next week as to how we're going to do that. But June 30th, we're planning for it. The governor's confirmed as our keynote speaker, and things are looking good. So we'll continue to update you on that. January 26th, we have a legislative delegation meeting. It's scheduled to be here. We've had some requests to do it remotely, so we'll probably provide that option. Our main item is to discuss the change in formula that resulted in the only funding cut to an urban cog came to our region last session as a result of the way the legislature adopted the law. So we're going to take that up. I know Mayor O'Leary has asked the delegation to convene here, and you're all welcome to attend that meeting. We'll get notice out to you from there. Last thing I just want to touch on, yesterday was the Regional Brownfields Partnership annual meeting. It went very, very well. We had great participation from EPA and from DECD. There's lots of good information there. It is recorded. It's available on our YouTube page. So I strongly recommend anybody who didn't get to watch that, should log in and skim through that video. I'm happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Dunn?
Mayor, just a quick one. This is probably more to you than it is to Rick. Regarding the legislative meeting, have we reached out to legislators in our other COG towns to attend this meeting, or just Waterbury? And
we reached out to the entire delegation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we have just one other thing. Aaron Boudris, it just has to update on the hazard mitigation plan. We just wanted to give you guys a quick update on that before we go. With your permission, Aaron.
So, over the last 18 months, funded by a federal grant from FEMA, NVCOG staff has been working with a consultant to develop a regional hazard mitigation plan, which will update all of your municipal hazard mitigation plans. So the plan was approved by FEMA in October, pending local adoptions, and I'm happy to report today that as of earlier this week, all 19 COG communities have adopted the plan. So I'd like to thank all of you and your municipal staff for prioritizing these adoptions and moving the process along. With those local adoptions in hand, we'll now resubmit the plan to FEMA for final approval, which we expect in the coming weeks. And then we'll be distributing electronic and hard copies of the plan to all of you. So with final approval, all 19 of your towns will be eligible for federal hazard mitigation assistance program funding for the next 5 years. So thank you again for all of your support on the project and all the work that your municipal staff has put into this effort.
Thank you, Aaron. Anyone have any questions for Rick or Aaron? Hearing none. Are you all set?
We're all set.
Okay, great. Item agenda number 5, a presentation from Kathy Awad of the Northwest Regional Workforce Investment Board. Kathy?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the time today, and I will do my best to be as concise as possible, realizing your time constraints. So thank you for the opportunity. I was going to be joined by Michael Hayden, but we have some competing meetings going on. So Mike has dropped off. He's our Chief Operating Officer. We were going to share these slides, but I think I can make this through. So we can hit the next slide, Rick. Just quickly, for those of you that might be new, and I understand some of the towns that participate in this COG are not necessarily in our region as far as the workforce board goes. Ansonia, Bristol, Plymouth, Seymour, and Shelton, to name those that are served by other workforce boards. But for us, this is an opportunity to kind of update the new elected officials as well as those of you that are incumbents. So this was just a little bit of a org chart for the agency. We have about 19 staffers that provide services throughout the region, with offices located in main office in Waterbury and satellite offices in Torrington and Danbury. Next slide, Rick. Really, the next few slides are just to reiterate something that you are all aware of, and that is the traffic into the Department of Labor and the amount of people that are actively seeking employment is extremely low. We struggle on a daily basis to have any traffic in the American Job Center in the area of providing employment services. Most of the foot traffic into any of the American Job Centers are folks coming in with questions on their unemployment filings. I would just draw your attention to the line that's numbered 211. Those are folks that have entered into actual job training in the year of 2021. Very disappointing, 51 people chose to access training programs under WIOA in our region. So if you could go to the next slide, I just wanted to kind of, so in August, as we got ready to see the end of the additional $300 that we thought would drive people back to the centers, we had the number of people that presented in person for employment services was approximately 144 people. That was in August. If we could go to the next slide. September comes and we thought that we'd see a big influx. We had 123 people come in. We thought we would see 300 to 500 people, 123. In October, even less, 83 people. And down, if you could hit the next slide. November, we're down to, I think it's 85 is that number. I can't see the way I have this here is blocking my view of my own slide. 85 people. And then finally into December, we're down to 114 people coming in seeking employment services. So I know many of you have reached out to say you have businesses that are looking for help, or you yourself as a municipality are struggling to find employees. It is throughout industry sectors. It is throughout this state. It is throughout all of the United States. And I have had the ability to provide some technical assistance to the Workforce Board in the Virgin Islands. And they too have struggled from truly a lack of interest on the part of job seekers to return to the workforce. If you want to hit the next slide, Rich. Just by way of information for the services that we do provide, the Workforce Board has a robust business services unit that provides services to employers. We work with employers to provide them with incentives to bring people on to work, although right now the incentive is just that the individual is interested in even showing up. But we can provide on-the-job training contracts to reimburse wages. Our business service team also meets with employers to address what their training needs are so that we can make sure our training providers are delivering the correct curriculum. And we also do recruiting events. As you might recall on some of the earlier slides, you saw the recruiting events noted in the foot traffic into the AJCs. For our job seekers, we provide a variety of job fairs. The Waterbury Chamber held a very successful one the other day. They had over 60 companies that participated, and they had a couple of hundred folks, which is promising, come through the doors looking for work. Folks that are looking to retrain, leaving industry sectors to which they likely will not return, can come in and access a variety of different training programs, and we have funding available to support their tuitions. Rick, the next slide. You might have heard, and some of you may have attended, the Office of Workforce Strategy through the governor has now made available approximately $62 million in a variety of industry sector training through a program called Career Connect. The applications for round one are due February 20th. Our Workforce Board has been asked to lead a statewide application in the area of green jobs. We will be looking at energy efficiency training, environmental remediation training, supporting the brownfields redevelopments. And they've asked us to loop in some CDL training there because there is a significant number of openings for CDL drivers. The DOT alone has openings for 300 plus drivers at the Connecticut DOT. We are also been asked to develop a statewide application for transportation supports. And I promise you that after this meeting, we'll be reaching out to April to make sure that we're including her in the conversations as we look to stand up transportation assistance to both job seekers and employees to get to work by expanding transit district routes or looking at unique ways in the rural areas, car-based solutions, providing support to make sure someone's car is road ready so that they can get themselves back and forth to work. And then unique solutions such as Uber and Lyft to get people over the hump, to get them back into work until they're able to secure a vehicle. And lastly, we will be offering a regional application to the Career Connect funding with our adult ed providers throughout the region in manufacturing. Last year, we participated in what was called the National Rethink Adult Ed Education Initiative. We submitted an application. Unfortunately, it wasn't funded, but we don't want to let that work product lie on the shelf. So we're going to dust it off and submit it to Career Connect. And that application will be for approximately $3 million. Just by way of other funding, the transportation application will be in the area of $4.2 million. And our Green Jobs application for a statewide program will be approximately an $8 million application. Rick, the next slide. Another initiative that we've taken on at the request of the Office of Workforce Strategy in the governor's office is to stand up what's called the Next Gen Sector Partnerships. This is a unique way of reshaping business partnerships. These are employer driven. From the graphic, you can see that at the main table are the employers, and then around the table is the sector strategy partners to support the initiatives that are industry driven. Approximately a year ago, we launched a manufacturing sector partnership. It has begun to really take hold. It is led by 4 industry champions throughout our region Doug Johnson from Marion Manufacturing, Evan Burns from the Sites Corporation, Molly Kellogg from Hubbard Hall, and Rich DuPont from Resource Development. At the end of this month, we had planned to formally launch our healthcare initiative. We're going to be taking a step back in light of the COVID surge, and we'll probably postpone the launch of that until late February, early March, so that we can convene the industry people that have committed to this partnership in person. And we do have commitments from Dr. Schneider at St. Mary's, Brian Emmerich from Access Rehab, Don Thompson from Staywell, as well as other industry champions in the Danbury and Torrington area. So we're very pleased about that. I can also share with you that through the Office of Workforce Strategy, we are participating in an application to the EDA's Good Job Challenge. We'll be partnering with the state to apply for approximately $30 million. 6.5 of that would be allocated to our workforce board, $3 million for the manufacturing sector partnership, and $3.2 million for the healthcare partnership. So we're working on securing letters of support, and those applications are due into EDA by February 10th. So we are in the home stretch. Once we believe we'll be very successful, once they're awarded, we'll make sure to come back to this group and let you know how we plan to move forward with those dollars. Okay, Rick? And lastly, I know some of you folks have ARPA dollars that you might be looking at distributing to nonprofits to support them within your communities. We have worked and are currently working with Mayor O'Leary to develop 3 programs using a small piece of Waterbury's ARPA funding. We'll be standing up a community healthcare worker training. We're working with the mayor on a reentry program affecting some housing and employment opportunities for those folks that are returning either in our halfway houses or end of sentence that'll be returning to the community. And lastly, the mayor has committed an additional $100,000 to support the Summer Youth Employment Program for Waterbury youth, and that'll be able to serve approximately 50 additional students this coming summer. Mayor Bass in New Milford has reached out to us, and he's interested in conducting some trades training for his community, and we're working on putting that program together for him. So if any of you think you'd like to do something unique for your own constituency within your own municipality, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk with you and see what you thought you'd like to do. This is kind of just an abridged version. This is the way we are, very visible on social media. It has become the primary means of recruitment and making people aware of the services that are available. And again, if we can be of any assistance to any of you at any time, our contact information is here. Thank you, Rick.
Okay, Kathy, thank you so much. Anyone have any questions for Kathy Awad?
One question.
Mayor Dunn.
Yeah, Kathy, the ARPA money that we would put into that program, to the youth program in the summer, would that have to follow the same criteria because it's going into that program, or would we be able to do it differently?
The criteria for ARPA to be able to expend it would be that the student and or the student's family was negatively impacted by COVID. So it isn't necessarily an income threshold, it's the impact to COVID. So it's actually a little easier to get a student into that funding area.
That's helpful information. Ed St. John.
Kathy, I just want our longtime association, I want to commend you on your great job you do with our workforce. Very much to be commended. And this is not a new thing for you, Kathy. This has been going on for a long time, and everybody in our part of our council needs to recognize Kathy's hard work. Kathy, I have one question for you, and that is, where is our workforce going? I don't want to go down the political roads that there's reasons for it, but I'd like to know what you people, and if you could ever get back to all of us as a body and kind of why we're not even getting applications for positions is just bizarre. No interest whatsoever. We're fortunate here. We're not in that position, but everybody tells me, neighbors, that they're dealing with all kinds of issues. What has happened to our workforce? Where'd they all go to?
You know, Ed, you've raised a very interesting point, and there's been a lot of talk. And right now it's being coined the Great Resignation. They're just not working. People have retired early. The impact of the pandemic on people's psyche has really caused them to just step back. You and I both wonder, how are they able to afford to do that? And we're not sure, quite frankly, but there has been, in the month of November, an additional 4 million people in the United States left the workforce. They resigned their positions. So as more comes about why that's happening and how we go about changing that direction, I'll be sure to update this group.
I think your input could be very helpful to us, because it's maybe some of the pitfalls we need to be careful of too here to maintain our workforce.
Well, I can tell you, sir, I don't mean to interrupt. It has become an employee market. The employee today is really able to get what they want to be able to enter an employment. So we have to meet them in a flexible schedule, in a 4-day work week. In what is, people are looking at a greater work-life balance. And so that's something that we all need to consider when we're looking at recruitment. What are we offering? The days of working 4 or 5 12-hour days, people don't have to do that anymore. They can pick and choose where they go. So employers are having to restructure their format to be able to gain the workforce that they need.
You know, you may have to offer a retraining program for all of us old dinosaurs that are left in the system, so we can be recycled back into the workforce in our old age.
You know, the hard part is, sir, to your point, all of us, our line of thinking is, well, we meet what they need, and it's been flipped. That script has been flipped. It's now more incumbent on the employer to meet the demands of the employee to be able to keep them engaged. It's quite different from when you and I entered the workforce.
Yeah, I know. But there's always a flicker of hope for us dinosaurs.
Yes, sir.
Good. Thank you, Kathy. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Zekin.
Kathy, how you doing? Mayor Zekin from Derby. Real quick, is this the workforce? Is it just to retain unemployed, or for people that are currently working, they're going to be looking to go somewhere else? I had one constituent came up, is in the healthcare, and their doctor is almost 70, getting ready to retire. So they're kind of nervous to move on. And they were just looking to retrain. Is that available for?
Yes, sir. That is available. So through the Career Connect funding that'll be available, there'll be opportunity for incumbent worker training. If someone is looking to upskill in their current industry or look to transfer industry sectors, there'll be multiple opportunities for participants to engage in those trainings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Kathy Awad? Kath, thanks so much for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I wonder if all this has anything to do with vacation time. Who knows? Next item agenda. Let's see, we have Municipal Shared Services, John DeCarlo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The hour is late and I will be brief. Frequently, we've been bringing up municipal solid waste and recycling issues before you. In the past week, in the Republican American newspaper, there were 2 news stories about 2 separate of our NVCOG municipalities dealing with the challenges related to the cost. We'd like to ask every CEO who's interested in reducing your solid waste disposal costs, please review the memo that's in your packet regarding regional composting. We currently have very few tools available to lower costs. Organics diversion, which is food and yard waste, is one viable way to reduce costs. Last month, 5 of our municipalities sent representatives, including one CEO who's in the room with us today, to a regional composting demonstration in West Haven. This is an adaptable model for other regions, including our own. There's likely numerous sites in NVCOG's region that can accommodate the type of facility described in the memo. Any town that hosts a site like this could bring revenue from tip fees of the organics process there, as well as from the sale of topsoil that the compost produces. Ideally, these sites would be adjacent to existing municipal transfer stations, but there's likely additional sites in many of our towns as well. If any CEO would like to learn more about this, please contact me within the next 2 weeks. If we receive interest from any municipality in hosting a site, we're prepared to seek regional funding from the state to move a project or multiple projects in this regard forward. and I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. DiCarlo? Steve, what do you have going on out in Bethlehem with this? I've been reading about you. Well, not you. I've been reading about your town. What's is that one of these sites? Is that what they're trying to do over there?
Well, we're part of this initiative, but we're just trying to cut down on our illegal intake.
No, I got you. I got you. I got you. Okay. Any other questions or comments for John? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, John. Moving along to item agenda 7, emergency management update. We have Joanna and John with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to yield to John Field, as I know that you probably want to hear more about test kits and masks and all the distribution that's been happening over the last few weeks. John?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Joanna, and thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just to give you a quick update, I apologize if there's background noise. We're actually doing a pod today for the schools. So we're up here in Torrington doing that. But to date, we've had, I think this is our 5th pod. We've handed out, if we include today, 66,000. We're probably right under 200,000 test kits, as well as probably around 250,000 N95 masks. That's just in Region 5. The state of Connecticut, we've done, I believe the goal was 3 million test kits. Today we should meet that goal. And then also with, as far as N95 mask, I think we're up in right around 5 million right now across the state. So like I said, we're doing a pod today. We're into planning stages of how we move forward from here. We've met the obligation of what was promised at the beginning for municipalities, and for $1 million for municipalities and $2 million for the school systems. So today we'll fulfill that promise with this last pod here. And then we're in the planning stages of how we move forward from here and how we address the needs for those people who still have need for test kits and or mask, and how we're going to do that. So that's still in the planning stage. If you do need masks, especially, I ask that you just work with your EMD to put in a WebEOC request, and they will actually deliver those masks to you. So they've been having some pretty quick turnaround. So within a day or two, you will have the mask delivered to your doorstep. So that's from the pod's perspective. As you can imagine, we worked right through the holidays to get this all squared away, and our pods have addressed municipal, SDE, which is the State Department of Ed, and also we had one pod addressing Office of Early Childhood for our daycare and childcare centers. So been a little busy and still busy doing this planning stuff, but we're trying to get these test kits out. There's been a lot of conversation in regards to the use of the test kits and the use of the mask and all that kind of stuff. I try to share the information as much as possible with you guys, but we're still working on some of that messaging. I know the commissioner from the Department of Public Health is very adamant about doing proper messaging, especially around the test kits, and what they should be used for and what they're supposed to be used for. As far as school systems were concerned, their goal was to put 2 in each child's backpack and have them bring them home. I don't know if that sort of went by the wayside. So now they're just giving them to schools, and I'm not sure the objective of what the schools do with them is up to them pretty much. But, that's where we are right at the moment. And each municipality is handling it a little bit different, from a pod distribution perspective at the local level. Again, the state has left that up to the municipality to figure out how they get those masks out into the public. Moving forward, it looks like we're going to do all this distribution and mask and test kits as they become more readily available through the WebEOC process. So that's where we are right at the moment with all this test kit and mask pods, and we continue to operate under that and do a lot of planning for the future. So I don't know if there's any questions specifically related to, test kits and masks.
Sure. First Selectman Temple.
Yeah, how accurate are these things?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
How accurate are the home tests?
Correct.
Oh, that's a great question. So this is one of the things with messaging, from what I understand. I don't know what the percentage is, but these are just like any other test kit. You can get false positives. There's no doubt about that. So this is where we are very adamant with the administration for the state, including the governor's office, that the messaging has to be a little clearer, because really, what is the test kits? They're just another tool to measure, maybe you have COVID, maybe you don't. The bottom line is, I think we've lost track of common sense, and if you don't feel good, you stay home, no matter what the test says. So that's my response. It's not a direct answer, Mr. Temple, but that's the response I'm going to give you, because it's probably the most realistic.
Okay.
Thank you, John. And I think we all realize common sense isn't all that common these days, but
that's true, Mayor.
Mayor, listen, to the chair, if you don't mind if I comment on that real quickly. This is one area that, as a brand new mayor, I have direct relationship to. Just came from a biotech testing company. I put out about 3 videos to our town and really held back the number of people that came out, because I can give you 2 percentages that these tests are good for. 99% sensitive, meaning if it says yes, you do have COVID, stay home. So people that are asymptomatic, these tests are great for that. It's about a 15% false negative rate, meaning that just because it comes back blue with no pink doesn't mean you don't have COVID. So you still need to be careful. And the PCR tests that the state is doing is what most people need to go back to work. Most employers are not going to utilize this to do that. By the way, we had a pretty orderly distribution, and we didn't even run out of test kits the first time because we had that message out to people. So I do think we have to work on our messaging.
Thank you, sir. That is so true, Jeff. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, John, I just got a call while you were speaking. I had to leave the room from our deputy superintendent, who says that of schools, who says that they just got notice from the state that a portion of the N95 masks that were given out to cities and towns are defective.
Yeah, they're expired.
So what's happened, Mayor? There's some rumor control. That's another part of the messaging that goes out. It needs to go out. Is some of the BYD masks that were handed out. There was a recall back probably about 4 or 5 months ago. Each one of your municipalities were notified of this. And at the state warehouse, where we get all our stuff from, they had the National Guard spend 3.5 weeks going through every single box and every single mask, matching up the serial numbers as well as the lot numbers. And they pretty much cleaned house and were able to send everything back. What we're thinking is some of the municipalities may, because at the beginning, what was happening here is we asked the schools to go through the municipality to get masks. And we're thinking that some of the municipalities had a stock of these masks and didn't hear about the actual recall. And so some of them are out in the distribution world. But I can guarantee you the ones from the warehouse, not saying 100% guarantee, but because of our faith in the National Guard and what they've done, all the recall masks that we have were sent back and replaced. I will tell you, if you do get a call in regards to that, if the school sends myself a message, we will get them hooked up and we will replace all those out-of-date masks.
Okay, my friend. Thank you for the clarification on that. Anyone have any questions for John? Anyone have any questions for Joanna? Or Joanna, did you, I'm sorry, I had to leave the room for a bit. Did you have an opportunity to say what was on your agenda?
Yes, if I could take a few minutes, I promise I'll be brief. So I just wanted to let everyone know that the long-term recovery committee, the steering committee, still meets at a monthly basis, and Kathy Awad is part of that committee. And we really value anything that she has to contribute to that. And just as a reminder, the items that we do talk about during that long-term recovery meeting, we do, John Field is always on these calls. He takes whatever we talk about, takes it to the state level and makes sure that the state is aware of whatever it is that we're talking about with unmet needs related to COVID. That being said, our last meeting was this past Wednesday. There was talk about that childcare is still a big need among people who do want to get back into the workforce, and just in general, it's just a very big need and it's going to be a big part of our recovery from the COVID epidemic. Also, we had FEMA Region 1 representative, Katie Larrabee. A couple months ago, we asked for a whole bunch of projects to be submitted to FEMA. We asked the towns to please give us your projects and all that kind of thing. There is an update on that. They're focusing on equity, meaning they're looking at the projects that are particularly affecting distressed communities, and distressed communities as defined by the state of Connecticut, not by the federal government. So that process is moving forward. And the next meeting of theirs is February 9th, next month, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Just quickly about Regional Emergency Planning Team for Region 5, the MOAs for the Homeland Security Grant Program for federal fiscal year 21 were due. I will be contacting those communities, those municipalities that did not yet hand those into the Northwest Hills. The next steering committee for Region 2 is February 14th. And finally, the community emergency response teams. With COVID surge, there's been an increase in CERT team activations. And this is just a reminder that the standard operating procedure for activation must be followed if you want your team to be covered by the state's liability coverage. I mean, if you don't use standard operating procedure, then it is up to the municipality to be responsible for that liability. So thank you very much, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Joanna. Any questions for Joanna or John? I guess you're all set, Joanna and John. Thank you both so much for everything you're doing, especially during this pandemic. Item agenda number 8, NVCOG Planning and Transportation. Mark Nielsen.
Okay, thank you. I just want to do a quick update of our LOTSIP program. We try to present this chart every month just to keep everybody sort of up to date on our progress. And again, this is a little bit different than last month's. We have, again, the orange line is sort of representing our obligations of lots of money from the region in our projects. And the blue line is what we've been awarded or allocated from the state, from the program. We have been very aggressive and we continue to be very aggressive. And as what you can see is this summer, our orange line is going to be very, very close to the blue line. So we're almost 100% programmed of our money. Next year is where we have a problem in that we actually will be obligating more money than we have available. Not sure how the state's going to react to this, since we'll be the first region to actually approach 100% utilization of our funds. So we'll see what happens. But it's something that we'll keep everybody abreast of. And this is mainly due to a number of our projects sort of advancing quicker than we had sort of expected. So again, this year, currently we have 6 projects under construction. This coming construction season, and we have another 3 or 4 that are expected to proceed. So it's something we're keeping an eye on. We still continue to entertain applications as they come in, and we just wanted to let towns know when we do receive it, what our financial situation is. So we'll keep this updated each month. Next slide. The next thing I wanted to just talk about was a couple of meetings ago, we had talked about revising our LOTSIP guidelines just to clarify a couple of items that we thought needed to be addressed. And basically, the guidelines right now, basically, the biggest one we want to address is that a number of our project sponsors are including, sort of streetscape, complete streets type of elements. These are sort of treatments not on the road itself, but along the curb line or the sidewalk area. A lot of the projects, want to address not just traffic; they want to address, the environment of the street itself, and have been including things like, improved sidewalks, concrete pavers on the sidewalks, granite curbing, decorative lighting, things of that nature. The department sometimes accepts these as participating and sometimes they don't. And we, in our revised guidelines, just want to emphasize that the decision on whether to include these or not should be left to our board. It's their decision to decide if this is important or not. And basically, we want to go on record that the board is in favor of including these kinds of elements as part of a LOTSIP project and should be considered as participating. And then the other couple of guidelines that, and again, these were explained in the memo that went out with the package. But basically, the other one is just to clarify a couple of our way we sort of operate the program. One being the need to sort of identify the pavement structure needs, at the outset of the application. And the other one is, just to formalize our review process where we do conduct a third-party review at the semi-final design stage. So those are basically it. These have been reviewed by the TTAC and has been endorsed. So I can answer any questions that you might have.
First Selectman Ed Moan, I move the motion.
Second. Motion is made and second. Is there a discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, Mark.
The next one, Ritual. Okay, we had received a request to replace the Todd Road Bridge. And this had been a sort of a project that we had entertained a few years ago. That
actually, Mark, if you don't mind, if I jump in here, because we had to delay the last TTAC meeting due to weather, we would like to table this item until probably the March board meeting.
Moved. Okay, is motion to the table. Is there a second?
Second, Ed Moan.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Are we done?
Are there any opposed? Hearing none opposed, motion carries. All right, item number 9, environmental planning. We have Soul Smart update. Christine O'Neill.
Hi there. I'm Christine. For the new CEOs who may not know me, I'm your friendly environmental planner. I just wanted to give a quick update on our Soul Smart program. In October, you voted to participate in this U.S. Department of Energy funded program to promote regional solar development. It's a lot like Sustainable CT in that you complete actions and earn credit in order to get a bronze, silver, or gold certification. As of today, COG staff has completed actions equal to about 85% of the point total necessary for our region to achieve silver designation. We've got a bunch more actions also pending. So our accomplishments so far include, as you can see on the screen, we now have a solar hub. It's a landing page. We've got a bunch of resources up there, not just for residents and developers, but for your municipal staff. We've also worked to get some solar goals proposed to include in the regional plan of conservation and development. And we work with our utilities to obtain data on solar capacity in our towns. In the coming months, we're very excited to tackle a few other things we have in motion. We'll have an interactive solar map and dashboard for solar metrics of our region. We're going to be providing some virtual trainings for your municipal staff on permitting and inspection and on planning and zoning. And after this meeting, we'll be reaching out to your building inspectors to collaborate on solar inspection practices. So with that, we invite you to check out the webpage. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to field them. All right, thank you so much.
All righty, moving along, we have a Kinneytown Dam update by Aaron Boudris.
Thank you. So there's been a major positive development in the Kinneytown Dam issue. Late last month, on December 22nd, FERC issued a notice finding Hydroland in violation of its authority to operate Kinneytown Dam. So the violations there include the company's failure to operate the dam's generating facilities, failure to provide adequate fish passage as their permit exemption requires. So FERC issued a schedule of actions that the company needs to take to bring the facility back into compliance. The commission, in doing so, denied Hydroland's proposed schedule in favor of a much more aggressive one that we had pushed for and that was recommended by Connecticut DEEP and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. If Hydroland does not comply with the requirements, they can face civil penalties, revocation of their permit exemption, or both. FERC's finding and compliance directive is a really big step in getting the issues at Kinneytown Dam addressed. And I just want to, say that some credit is certainly due to the work that our coalition has undertaken to bring the issues at the dam to the attention of the resource agencies and to FERC, and also to the effort of you, our COG members, that you've made pushing the resource agencies to prioritize action at Kinneytown. And we're also very thankful for the attention that our federal delegation has given the issue. So our staff and our coalition are going to continue to monitor Kinneytown Dam and work with the resource agencies to ensure compliance and to hold Hydroland accountable. We do know that one deadline is actually already passed, unanswered. And there's several deadlines coming up at the end of next week. So we're going to be working very closely with DEEP and Fish and Wildlife Service to monitor that. I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's definitely a step in the right direction here.
Okay, are there any questions? Pretty self-explanatory. Everybody's pretty well versed in this subject. So with that, I think we're probably looking for an adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed to adjourning?
Let me know.
Have a happy New Year's, everyone.
You count that out.
Well, now you take the mask off, huh?